because
Where was Nate?
Well, Nate does it all the time.
on another duty.
But I missed the real founder of the feast, of course, is Tiffany, who did all the cooking and the preparation.
And Adrian. Thank you, Adrian. Yeah. If you enjoyed the broccoli, that was her special recipe. So anyways, it was a lovely team effort. And we look forward to doing this together on a monthly basis throughout this year. And hopefully we'll learn each other and in the process become deeper disciples individually and communally. All right, I'm going to put this on. Well, I want to begin with a question. And throughout this year, we're going to begin with questions that God asks us. You're welcome to pull out those questions if you want to, but you don't need to. And the question is the first question recorded in Scripture. Yeah, there's some papers on your table. You don't need them yet if you don't want them. But the first question in the Bible is, where are you? And that's a pretty interesting question. So I invite you, even as we go through this time together tonight, to hear the question being asked of you. Where are you? And you can answer that in all sorts of ways. Well, I'm sitting in the room where you are, thank you very much. What's that?
You can be literal.
You can be literal, exactly. I'm at church, I'm at Christ Church, I'm at a leadership formation dinner. I'm in Washington, D.C. You could say I'm between careers, or I'm at the end of careers. You could answer that question in terms of your family or relationship status. Or you could ask, where am I in life? Where am I in my life with God? Where am I as a human and the human I wanted to become, and how's that going for me? It's actually quite a broad question. And what I find very interesting is it's a question often that humans ask God, and the Psalms are full of this question. Where are you, God? We don't see you. We look around the world, and it just really doesn't seem like you're here, and if you're here, you're certainly not doing your job very well. But the first time this question is asked is actually God speaking to Adam and Eve, asking, where are you? And I think that's, it's a profoundly sad question. These are the people that he had made, not because God needed anything. God's pretty self-sufficient, thankfully. But out of love, out of the desire to share his overabundance of love in relationship with some other creatures, he decided to complicate this planet by putting humans on it. And by giving them the authority to actually have its resources and rule. And he said, okay, I want you to lead, and I give you permission. I set it all up for you. Go for it. And being God, he probably knew what a bad job we'd do. And yet, out of his great love, as a parent loves their child, he wanted humans on his planet. And what he desired with those humans was relationship. Connection. It's not really that we benefit him at all in what we do. We only need to read the news to see how well we do our job of leading and caring for his earth. But what it is very similar to the reason why we have children. It's not that they actually make our life easier. It's that we love them and we just want to be part of their lives. And these two children placed in the Garden of Eden were God's walking buddies in the evening, the ones that he would come down and visit each day. And yet one evening, he came to visit them to have their evening chat, and they're hiding. And he says, where are you? Not that he didn't know, as much as we don't know when our young children are hiding. We know exactly where they are. We used to, with our youngest, see the trail of candy wrappers to behind the piece of furniture where she was trying to consume them as rapidly as possible. We knew exactly where she was. And God knew exactly where they were. So why ask the question? He asked the question because he's inviting them to answer it. He's inviting them into a conversation with himself. A conversation that up till now hadn't been broken, but now suddenly has been because something has gone wrong and they are lost. God isn't the one lost. They are. And the very fact that he's asking the question is actually a very sad moment because these two children have just lost their innocence. They've lost their confidence in life. They've lost their sense of purpose and direction, which up till now maybe they hadn't really had to think about, but it was just there. And on a deeper level, a more fundamental level, they've lost their connection to the source of their life, to the source of their being loved, to the source of their belonging. And they're hiding because they're ashamed. So though God hasn't gone anywhere, they have gone somewhere, and he's not content to leave it that way. So he asks a question to invite them back out of hiding and back into the conversation with himself. And what I find amazing about this is that he asks a question that meets them where they are. It's a question that invites them to think about, well, where am I? Why am I hiding? Why do I feel disconnected from God? What's going on? And not just where am I, but where do I want to be? And what will it take to get there? In many ways, it's an invitation into prayer. That conversation, that back and forth conversation is what we call prayer. A conversation between ourselves and God. Sometimes, to enter into that conversation, we need a prompt from the outside. We need an invitation. And in many ways, that's what we enter into when we come to church or participate in daily prayer in the offices or things like that. It's almost like there's a prompt that's built into our week or into our rhythm to remind us to enter into that conversation. Because it's very easy for us to get so caught up in our lives and in the lives in a world where we do not see God or hear God standing in front of us. Sometimes we need a prompt to catch us up and to remind us to enter into that conversation. It's interesting, I was thinking about this the other day. When I was young, there were magic words that were introduced to me as a child. Magic words like please, thank you. The food was yummy, may I please be excused. That was all one phrase. The things that I was taught to say that were the right words to say at the right moments. And I never really had thought about what the words meant as a child. I had just been told this is what you're supposed to say in this given moment. And I learned very quickly that if I didn't say that, then I got in trouble. And if I did say it, I was reinforced with a response of pleasure, of delight, or of being allowed to leave the table and go play. And I think for many of us, that's what prayer feels like. Saying the right words, saying the magic words that we've been told to say. This is what you're supposed to say to God. This is how to be polite. This is how to be a good girl, a good child. And this is not the kind of prayer that God invites us into when he asks, where are you? What he invites us into is an honest speech of where I am. An unadorned kind of speech. And it's the kind of speech we find in the Lord's Prayer when he says, here's how to pray. Papa, please make sure I get food. Please don't be mad when I mess up. Please protect me when bad guys come. I mean, that's basically what we get we have the Lord's Prayer. I mean, we're used to praying it as the magic words, but quite honestly, it's a child's prayer. It's what is it that what is it that concerns us? What's on our minds? What's on our hearts? We bring these things and we ask them of God in very, very simple childish language. I rediscovered yesterday something that's hanging on the wall in my room, and it was 2 notes that my children wrote me when they were young, and completely prompted and dictated by their aunt for Mother's Day. And who must have been about 5 at the time. Well, no, I'm sorry. There was a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old involved in the writing of these notes. The 6-year-old's note sounds a lot like what our prayer can sound like sometime. And it was this, something along the lines of, "Dear Mama, thank you for all the delicious and healthy food that you prepare for us. You reach us in so many fun ways. You arrest me in love. You are so kind and so gracious. I love you." This was a child who had reached a point of maturity where she felt like, and I've just given away an identity. It wasn't Anna. She wasn't born yet. Felt like she needed to use flowery and sort of, I don't want to say transactional language, but complimentary language. She was writing what she thought I wanted to hear. And then the 4-year-old writes, "Dear Mama, thank you for your food. I like it when you let me play on your computer, and thanks for letting me have toffees and treats and the things that I really want." And it was honest. It was speaking from where he was, not where he thought I wanted him to be, but what really mattered to him. It had started out with the polite, "Thank you for the healthy food," but actually that's not really what I want to thank you for because I don't like that stuff. This is the sort of prayer that our Father invites us into when he asks, "Where are you?" And even Jesus, his Son, invites us into when he teaches us how to pray. How does a child answer the question, "Where are you?" Actually, my children, as toddlers, I don't know, I'm thinking, Rachel, what would Brooke say? Or what would Hudson say?
He was, in the bathroom, in the closet.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe just, "I'm here."
Yeah.
I don't even have to give an answer. "I'm here. You should know where I am." Yeah, yeah. And there's something very simple and transparent and upfront about that. "I'm here. Please come find me. Please come meet me where I am." And this is also, I think, the kind of prayer that God invites us into. Not me going and ascending into the heavens where I pray the prayers that I think God wants me to pray, but where I start speaking from where I am. Some of the best advice on prayer I've ever received is pray as you can, not as you can't. And as good Episcopalians especially, Tim kind of already referred to this, I think that we become very intimidated by the idea of prayer because we have this incredible liturgy of amazingly constructed prayers, and none of us are that poetic. Well, maybe Tim is. But we think, I can't pray because I can't come up with that kind of language for God. And yet, what is it that pleases God? It's the childlike note that expresses what's actually on our hearts and actually on our minds. So I wonder where you are. You may not know right now. Your answer might be, "I'm here. Come and find me." You may be a long way from your childhood aspirations. You may be a little jaded by cynicism, failure, hardship, others' failures. You may be showing up, but feeling a bit disconnected. Showing up to the relationship by showing up at church. Showing up to the relationship by getting involved in leadership and things like that, but not really knowing how to get back to the home that you no longer remember, how to regain connection to the God that you know you came from and will return to, but can't see or hear from now. So another question for you to think about, what is it that separates you from God? If God is here, what is it that keeps us from feeling connected? From feeling that presence and from feeling the freedom to enter into it at any given moment? What would it be like for you to feel connected to God? When Jesus showed up on earth, it was really God coming back into his garden with skin on this time so that he could be seen by the people who had lost their ability to see spiritually. And he walked on earth seeking his beloved ones as they were, where they were, in their culture, in their time, in their skin. And I find it very interesting, the story of Jesus finding Nathanael And Jesus shows up, and Peter and James and John and Andrew, those two sets of brothers, are out fishing, and he finds them in the middle of their vocation. Maybe you're not fishermen, but you can imagine yourself, whatever your vocation is. He finds them there, and he says, "Come follow me." But for Nathaniel's kind of the philosopher, I think. He's sitting under a fig tree thinking about the world. And his brother invites him to come meet Jesus. And Jesus says, "Oh, I saw you sitting under the fig tree." And Nathaniel goes, "Wow, you really are God. You really are the Messiah." And Jesus' invitation to Nathaniel and to the other disciples is, "Come follow me and I'll make you leaders. I'll make you fishers of men." To Nathaniel, his invitation is, "Come and see. Come and see who I am. Come and see where I live. Come and see how I am." And these were all invitations to discipleship. They were invitations to observe what God is like by watching God at work, by listening to what God says when he's on earth. How does he react to this person? What does he do about that situation? What does he say about what God is like? Basically, to witness who God is and to learn how to be like him. An invitation to discipleship is basically an invitation into an internship. I was trying to think, what's the equivalent? We don't really do gurus and disciples in America. We do them in India, but not on this part of the world. But we do internships. And I wonder how many of you did internships along the way into what you've become. What's the purpose of an internship? Why do you even enter into unpaid labor? It's really because you want to learn something, learn how to do a role. And with that role comes a set of skills, the way to dress, the way to behave, the network, all of that comes out of having been an intern. So there's a process, though. You begin an internship first, just grateful that somebody accepted you into it instead of all the other people. And you show up wearing clothes maybe that are unfamiliar, but that match those of the people you're with. And you do a lot of watching to see how's it done here, and then pretending like that's how you've always done it too. A lot of imitation, intensive observation, and quick imitation. How do they handle this situation? All right, I'm going to do it the same way. In many ways, that's exactly what discipleship is. It's an intensive, a lifelong internship with Jesus. It's learning how to imitate him as his disciples. And the outcome is that we actually end up becoming like him. I have no idea what the disciples thought they were being invited to do when Jesus said, "Come follow me." It's pretty radical that they dropped their livelihood, their income, and embarked on that internship, unpaid actually. I'd have a feeling it did not entail everything that I have a feeling that it didn't entail what they would have expected, though I don't know if they had time to really think about what they expected. It certainly ended up involving riding out stormy seas, watching the dead get raised, being asked to be part of feeding 5,000 people when they only had one little kid's lunch, to do the impossible with minimal resources, and yet to be on the front row of watching God at work. And I think this is very much what our discipleship is an invitation into. So I wonder for you, when you started following Jesus, when you started on the path that you're walking on now, what did you expect? What did you sign up for? Why did you sign up for this? I think back on that question for myself, and I think I had no idea what I was signing up for. Why did I sign up anyways? Because something deep inside me said that this was worth it. That I would reach the end of my life and go, I'm glad I did that. Even though it has involved many twists and turns and demands on me at a high cost. But when I sit where I sit now, would I go back and do any of it differently? No, I would just do more of it. Because the gain has been the gift of connection with God. Connection sometimes that I don't feel, sometimes that is hard won, but that incrementally increases in a lifetime of pursuing relationship and of imitating Christ. And we get a view on what these disciples ended up becoming. We see them sort of as the bewildered disciples in their early years, kind of constantly taking Jesus aside and trying to correct him or fix the problems that he was making. And then we read the epistles that they wrote. You read 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John. You read 1st and 2nd Peter. And you read these mature, stable leaders of the church and go, wow, that's the same human that developed through a life of walking with God. They went from being self-protecting and denying in order to save their own hide to offering themselves as martyrs by the end and offering themselves for the sake of the church. They went from constantly arguing and competing with each other to becoming the servants of all. They went from doubting whether this Jesus really was who he claimed to be to proclaiming it boldly to the world. They were transformed into Christ-like leaders, so much so that at the end of Jesus' life, he said to them, I no longer call you servants, but friends. So they graduated from their internship and were made partners in the corporation. And that's exactly what we are in the process of becoming, partners in God's kingdom as it comes here on earth. That's pretty amazing. So when we say yes to following Jesus, we sign on for a life-transforming relationship. And it will come to define us. It will come to define what we do with our time, which already has, because you're sitting here, not in front of your television right now. What we do with our resources, our money, our talents, our relationships, how we engage in our vocation, how we engage in our relationships, in our marriage, with our friends, with our enemies. It will define how we use our bodies, our goals, our priorities, how we speak and use our words, how we rest. Our whole selves, we will play the part of interns, disciples, until we become the part, children of God. So we watch and learn, and that's the way we become. So by being with and in relationship with Jesus, through prayer and through our lifestyle, we'll organically become like Jesus, not just in what we do, but even in how we do it. It will become instinctive to us, second nature, to the point where the disciples, after Jesus was resurrected and ascended, went out preaching and healing, and people said, hey, were these guys with Jesus? Because they're so much like him. And inevitably, we will be transformed into those that will lead like them. In fact, this is exactly what you are in the process of becoming, fishers of men, leaders within the church. Not just for the sake of ourselves being on top or in control, not out of some ambition, but for the virtue and renewal of whatever bit of earth God entrusts to us. So Christian leadership, when this is sort of a leadership series, starts with discipleship. It starts with answering God's invitation to come and see, and along the way to be changed. It starts with accepting God's invitation into an ongoing conversation called prayer. It's not something we ascend into heaven to engage on. It's actually something that God descends to earth and engages with us in the everyday terrain of our lives, our jobs, our families, our homes. Our formation has an address, and it's called where we are. As we learn to respond to and observe God's activities where we are in our everyday lives, in our inner thoughts, in our domestic situations, in our work and its chaos, we are changed more and more into what it is that he dreams of us becoming and has dreamed of from the beginning. So I finish with this question. Where are you? Where are you in life? Where are you as a disciple of Jesus? And what is it that God is inviting you into? There are some questions on your tables that we will have some time now to discuss together in groups, some opportunity to reflect, to dig a little deeper into your own self, and also to share with others and hear what others have to say. And at the very end of those, there are also just a few prompts. This isn't a requirement, but it's an opportunity. There's a prayer prompt for this month. As Episcopalians, we do have these amazing prayers, and one of the things that we do is learn how to inhabit the liturgy, how to bring our whole selves into these amazing words. There's also a reverse to that, and is learning how to pray very simple, childlike prayers. So there's a prompt at the end of the page. I promise we won't do it tonight, but you can take it home and use it as a prayer prompt, sort of like what they used to give us in 3rd grade for like how to begin writing a letter. This is how to begin a personal prayer. And there are also some scriptures on the back. You don't have to do anything with them, but these are scriptures that you might want to reflect on through the course of this month as you reflect on your life of prayer and also your invitation to be a disciple of Jesus. Well, we'll take the next, 20, 30 minutes or so. We'll conclude by 8:30 and enjoy some discussion around these questions in the groups.